Is your family ready for the great wealth transfer? Hey folks, welcome back to Retirement Roadmap and thank you for joining us. My name is Evan and with me as always, retirement planner Mark Fricks. The silver tsunami is here. During this episode, we're going to discuss the great wealth transfer and how you can better ensure your own assets end up with the people you care about. Mark, legacy and estate planning is a huge aspect of what we discuss every day with clients.
It is. It is such an important part of what we do. Not only making sure you maintain control of your stuff while you're alive, need care, things of that nature, but the big part is transferring of the wealth. Not that big of a deal, as you know, from spouse to spouse. That's pretty cut and dried. I don't want to say it's a done deal. It's pretty cut and dried, but definitely the next generation and generations beyond. There's so many things that could be done to make that more effective, avoid cost, avoid taxes, avoid probate, but more importantly, just making sure what you want to happen happens.
Right. So since around 2011, I believe, the baby boomers have begun to retire and they have begun transferring and pass away. They've begun transferring some of their wealth to the younger generation. So let me give you a number here. The great wealth transfer is underway with about 84 trillion expected to move from baby boomers to Gen X and millennials over the next 2 decades. We already know from talking to clients, talking to prospects, most, if not many, families are unprepared. The cultural divide, especially between generations, adds complexity to preserving legacies.
Yeah, so there's not enough conversation. Let's just keep it simple. So many of our clients, and especially the ones that are the early baby boomers and older, just are very secretive. I'm not saying all of them, but many of them are very secretive about what they have, where it's at, things like that. Hey, I got things taken care of, we're good, or whatever. And many times these folks are in their 80s and 90s, and they think they've got things taken care of, but they don't really understand the new stuff. They don't understand the fact that their trust or will is 25 years old, language has changed, or whatever. And so I'm not sure how to break through that. Some of them may be a trust factor. And, some kids you might trust more than others. Others you trust them all, but there's just a little bit of a gap there. And I'm not sure how to break through that. It's not something you can just force somebody to do, for sure.
Well, we've got some points to go over today that will give some folks some ideas because you're 100% right. There is a cultural divide between those generations, and the same financially or even politically. A lot of, at one point when I was a kid, I knew that talking about politics was rude, right? You don't ask about politics or religion, but now it seems to be a lot more free-flowing. People are more willing to discuss that. There's not as much taboo, and especially with finances. So here's another study that shows 70% of families lose inherited wealth by the second generation and over 90% by the third. This is known as the third generation curse, apparently.
Yeah, that's a big number, but it doesn't really surprise me because, again, it's a matter of the younger generations. Again, we're not trying to be too generalized here, but the younger generations tend to have a different view of money. I mean, I read recently where so many younger people really are just quitting their jobs and just traveling and things like that, which is great. But they're sacrificing future retirement, things like that. Maybe they're trying to use up some of their parents' money. I mean, I wish a lot of these parents and grandparents would go ahead and give some of their money away while the kids are still around with the parents, so they can watch them enjoy it,
teach them and engage them,
and teach them how to spend it as well. But it's so many layers to this. It's so complex that we could probably do 4 shows on this. But one thing we love to do, and you may get into this later, is to try to have family meetings. So once we've completed the planning process with the parents, let's bring the kids in. Let's especially if they're a trustee or something, but all of them that are involved in the next generation and even past that. And let's be open. Let's also talk about why we've done what we've done. Some of our clients will say, you can say this much, but don't tell them about that, and that's fine. But let's get an open conversation. I had an advisor I knew several years ago. He would do retreats. And he would take these families away to like a retreat in North Georgia or somewhere, and they would spend the weekend together and getting to know the complexities of the family. He would interact with them and say, yeah, I see this happening. The kids could be open and honest. The parents could be open and honest, but also have a good time too. And so that may be something we might want to look
I
at.
feel like you would need a psychiatrist to come along on that trip too.
I
but
thought we
great
were
idea.
psychiatrists, actually. So, at least counselors.
So I think that's the overall point, is to beat the odds, families need more than planning. They need multi-generational engagement built on understanding of the generational differences, and really, like everything else that we preach on this channel, early preparation is key. Teaching financial literacy to children and gradually sharing wealth planning details as they grow strengthens the odds of lasting wealth. So I want to discuss that. Planning on the same page. A 3-part plan is essential, and we've broken it down to these 3 parts. 1, a lifetime financial plan, which is what we do every day. A break the glass emergency plan. Something comes up, you never know. Rather than just blowing all your money incorrectly, you have a plan on how to handle those kind of expenses. And then a legacy plan for future generations. And it's critical that your families involve the younger generations in the process. Otherwise, 70% of heirs switch advisors after inheriting wealth, often due to weak relationships with the firms. That speaks to your point earlier. If you don't have a relationship with your advisor, especially if there is a generational difference, you see your parents' generation advisor of this sort of concept of money, or maybe uptight, or he's old school.
Old style, high ivory tower,
and
whatever.
if you do something like we do, we're holistic planning. We're so much more than just where you're keeping your money. There's a plan in place, and if the next generation doesn't know what that plan is and have not been led into this is how this works and how it's set up, then it's almost useless.
Well, we're also very family oriented. You know, we talk to our clients about being part of the MasterPlan family. We want to get to know. One of the first things our clients fill out when they become clients is information about their children, their grandchildren, their likes, the family likes, activities, clubs they belong to, things like that. Even their favorite food and favorite holiday and things like that. Would that ever come into being? Maybe not, but maybe so as well. So as much information as they can share is great. You know, I hate it when, and it does not happen very often, and it's typically clients that have not been, have been less connected to us. That I get a call from one of the kids. I understand you're my dad's advisor. He passed away 3 months ago. I need to talk to you, as opposed to getting a call the next day, because we are closer to that family. We are closer to their situation. We've talked about, hey, my son's going through this, my daughter's going through that. We've spent time with them and talking about that situation. So it's trying to make that connection with all of our clients. Can we do it with everybody? No, but it benefits the client. Is what it really does. Just like the stats you gave, let's pull that together and let's try to have something that goes beyond many generations.
Yeah. And again, with maintaining that relationship with the advisor, generations are looking for different things than their parents were. So the wealth management industry is shifting away from the product-driven models, which we preach that all the time, is shifting away from product-driven models towards holistic fiduciary-based services, which is what we do. But that's what the younger generations are increasingly expecting. So now 52% of the younger generation expect the holistic fiduciary model. In 2018, it was only 29%. So that's a pretty rapid increase over those years.
And that's amazing, especially when you understand what's happening over the last few years when it comes to robo-advising.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the younger folks kind of tried that, but there's just no connection there. You've got a computer saying this is where you should be. This is what happens if somebody passes away? What happens if you have a problem? You need extra money. Do you go to the robo-advisor and say, how much money should I take out? And when it's just I think the way I'm saying this is not perfect, but it's just a disconnect. It's the inhuman effect. It's almost like saying, I want to start going to a doctor that's a robot, or a doctor that's just a voice coming out of a window screen. I want that doctor saying, by the way, how was your trip to France last year, or how are you doing with this? Whatever.
Did you watch your sodium intake when you were in Paris, Mark? Yeah.
No, actually I didn't. But I don't think my doctor listens to this podcast. So anyway, but really that human connection, and I think as it kind of disconnected, I think people are wanting it back more.
Yeah.
So I think that's where what we do and firms like us can really come into play and can really be a part. And does everybody want that? No. We're not for everybody. But I tell you what, that human touch, I think, is just getting more and more critical.
That's great. Well, I do want to talk about some actual steps to take in engaging that younger generation for your wealth transfer. But before we do that, that's a perfect segue to our website, MasterPlanRetire.com. There you can schedule your complimentary consultation. It's a simple schedule now click, and then you're right there on our calendar. You find a time that works best for you. You can also call us at the office, 770-980-9262.
You know what's great about that complimentary consultation?
What's that?
Is we will actually, for no charge, we will run a series of reports looking into your future and saying, this is what my money is, this is what my savings is going to be for the next X number of years until I retire. Is my money going to last? That's kind of a good feeling to know where you stand. Do I need to increase savings? Do I need a better return? Do I need more guidance?
Yeah.
But also, we're going to introduce some curveballs. Okay, what if taxes go up? And that what if is actually should say when taxes go up. What about if I lose my spouse? What about this? What about that? And then you kind of know what to plan for, and it helps us if we decide to work together to include those pieces into that plan. So, you know, that complimentary consultation is powerful. And even if you just look at those reports and say, thank you very much, I really know what I need to work on, that's great. At least we gave you a helping hand.
That's perfect. So preparing for a wealth transfer includes 9 critical steps, from defining family goals, organizing documents, especially estate planning documents, minimizing taxes, educating heirs, and regularly updating plans, because we know that life moves and changes. Just like a plan has to be flexible. If you're preparing for a wealth transfer, here are 9 key steps to keep in mind. Number 1, start early, yes indeed, and define your family's goals and values. Number 2, communicate openly with family members about your plans. This is a hard one, like we mentioned earlier. Defining goals and values, you know, we do that at our first meeting basically with everyone we meet. That was number 1, but communicating those can be difficult, even between spouses. Sometimes we find out in those first meetings their goals and values are completely different, and they find out that their values are different.
They look at each other and go, I didn't know you wanted a lake house. I didn't know you wanted a boat, or whatever it may be. Yeah, it is kind of interesting.
And then number 3 is also super simple. Take inventory of assets and organize essential documents, from financial statements to your estate planning documents, trusts, pour-over wills, powers of attorney, all of that good stuff. And make sure that they are aligned as well. Make sure the beneficiaries on certain accounts are respect what the trust is saying, because believe it or not, beneficiaries on accounts, transfers on death, will override whatever the trust says.
And that organization is really important. One of the first things we do, as you know, when somebody comes in to see us, is we create a fairly simple financial statement just to kind of get us started. But as folks begin working with us, we want a detailed, and how many times have we seen people come in that have forgotten about this old 401k they had 20 years ago, or that little account they inherited from their aunt or whatever, and all of a sudden we're seeing stuff materialize that they had forgotten they even had, and who knows what would have ended up, you know, with that account or old 401k or whatever. So it's, and we've even had help people find old 401ks. 30 years ago, I've got a client right now that old 401k from 30 years ago, the company's been absorbed, changed, sold. 401ks have changed, been absorbed, whatever, and it's like a detective novel. I mean, it really is trying to find some of these old accounts. So that is important to know, but more importantly is pulling them together and having them available for the family. God forbid, you know, the father or the mother passes away very quickly, especially if one of the others in charge of their money in a family. So that's a big step.
Number 4, and this is also part of the holistic retirement journey and planning, but create a solid estate plan, wills, trusts, powers of attorney. You'll know what you need when you work with your financial professional and attorneys. What works for your plan? What do you need in place? Number 5.
Real quickly before we leave that, please, if you have any kind of an estate at all, don't go the cheap route. don't, I mean, it's, if you're 25 years old and own very little, going online to do a will is fine.
Sure.
But when you start getting this multi-generational, you start getting these different retirement accounts, you start getting into maybe some properties owned here and there. You just get over a certain amount of money. You have maybe property in more than one state. You're talking about documents that have to be correct. I know our attorneys, part of our team, they're estate planning attorneys, and their trusts are like an inch thick. Not because they're trying to charge you by the page, but because of the fact they want all the what ifs in there. Because guess what? Just as soon as you think you've got it straightened out, 2 years later, a tax law changes. Well, you don't want to have to go back and change the trust. But if this happens, we're going to go this route, or that's going to happen. So don't go the cheap route. And by the way, I'm not saying go out there and spend $8,000 on a trust. Our attorneys, because they work with us every day, much more value oriented than that, but still they are highly trained. They've worked around probate courts, around trusts, estate planning. They know what they're doing. So because we work with them so closely, do a lot of the legwork, they do give, they're very, again, fairly priced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Might be a good way to put that.
It's a team effort, and
yeah,
absolutely. It's good to have everyone on the same page. It's a huge value to our firm that we were able to team with our attorneys. Absolutely. Yep. I do want to try to get through these because we have a few more topics, but another point to making sure that those trusts are covering, I mean, we've got digital language now built into trust because of how many passwords, digital assets that people own now that has to be written in the trust. Otherwise, you're leaving too many things on the table there. Minimizing taxes, tax strategy. We've had a bunch of episodes in the past about tax strategy. We won't get too deep into that, but what are the tax strategies you can employ for your transfer of wealth, whether it's through strategic gifting, certain trusts, things like that.
And it's not just about the taxes you're paying, it's about what tax burdens are you passing on to the next generation.
Absolutely.
That law has changed, and therefore we have to treat it differently. So.
Absolutely. 6, choose the right people and advisors to carry out your plan. Absolutely make sure you're working with a holistic fiduciary advisor, but even down to the personnel that you write into your trusts for trustees or your executors on your wills, executrixes. There have been at least three appointments over the past few weeks, 3 different client appointments to where they were not sure who they could list as trustees, whether they just didn't have family or heirs or had tricky, sticky family situation.
Right.
That's a really big deal that you got to make sure that you can cover and do a little digging if you don't have anybody.
Yes, a lot of conversations, and there are, of course, corporate trustees, but you've got to be careful with corporate trustees because many of them require, not only will they be your trustee, but they also want to be the money manager. Right. I think that's a conflict of interest. Yeah. I think it's going to cause them to hold back on giving out money like they should. It's in the news right now, the Jimmy Buffett estate. They're saying that the trustees there, again, I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong, but the people that are like his wife that are trying to make it live, or she's accusing them of holding back on distributing funds. Is that true? I don't know. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that's kind of a dangerous combination. Somebody managing the money and controlling the money. So be careful. We can certainly offer up some references for that.
Absolutely. Just a few more points. Number 7, educate and prepare your heirs. We're going to talk a little bit about how to do that next. 8, plan for special circumstances. Again, emergencies, healthcare needs, family business, international issues, even cross state lines if you have property in another state. And then 9, review and update your plan regularly. Okay, so we have about 5 or so minutes left. I want to go over the 5 forms of family capital. True legacy goes beyond money. Frameworks like the 5 forms of family capital show that cultural, human, social, and intellectual capital are just as important as financial capital in building multi-generational wealth.
I love the clients that will sit down and write a letter to their family as part of their final documents and just saying, this is my beliefs, this is why I believe that way, this is whether it came from my parents, my grandparents, my life experiences, this is what it's like to have you as my children, my grandchildren, these are my favorite experiences I've had with you, just kind of sharing their heart that I mean, hopefully they'll share it while they're alive too. But I mean, kind of a final. This is me. I think they used to call that an ethical will, which I thought was kind of a weird name for it.
The old VHS tapes that they'd film themselves.
Well, that's I guess you can do that too. Put on a little USB or whatever little drive. But yeah, that's if you've lived a lifetime and you've got people that love you, let them know you love them, but also let them know kind of the whole story around you and them and us.
Well, these are some ways to do that while you're still living. So one, cultural capital defines the family's shared vision, purpose, values, and roles. It can be built through simple activities like drafting a vision during pizza night, or more formal retreats like you mentioned before, formal retreats with facilitators like the advisor Mark knew in the past, who would have family retreats to discuss these things. But the cultural capital, and I think it's even more important to get them aligned, get your family aligned while you're here. There's so much more investment. They see the passion and the reasons why. And then there's human capital. Focuses on physical and mental health. Families can build this through activities like phone-free walks. What is that? Or group fitness classes sponsored by elders when possible. Social capital strengthens relationships and decision-making. Options range from family book or movie clubs to virtual game nights that bring everyone together. What are we playing on so far, Mark, with these three so far? It's about the relationship.
It's the connection,
exactly.
The trust, all that.
100%. Yep. Intellectual capital shares knowledge and wisdom across generations. This might be a family member teaching a skill or recording a family podcast to preserve stories and life lessons. I think that's even financially. I mean, we know we're not really taught too much budgeting in school, and a lot of families don't discuss that either. Depending on the generation or upbringing, intellectual capital can be financial as well. But even showing your grandson how to whittle or things like that builds that connection. It also builds a legacy that's worth preserving, and that will inevitably carry over to the overall plan and wishes. And I think that all that helps.
Again, a greater connectivity, but also just. I guess from a standpoint of what was mom or dad really like. I'll never forget, and I know we're running out of time, but when my grandmother, my father's mother, was in her 90s, she was over for Thanksgiving or something, and we just sat in the living room, turned on the VHS recorder, right, and just talked to her and asked her questions, and what was it like growing up, and what was this, and what was that, and just to get it on tape, and things I had never heard, by the way. So I wish we'd been maybe more proactive at that earlier in life, but it's the money has nothing to do when it comes to the memories that you develop and the things you remember about.
Well, and I think it also instills a reason to honor somebody as well. If you see a plan that has been put in place for someone's legacy, those connections help inspire you to want to move that forward in honor
and continue that
absolutely
process. Yep.
And then finally, the fifth is financial capital. So of course, traditional assets like cash, securities, and real estate. While these are essential, it should be approached alongside the other four forms of capital to, again, build a fuller legacy.
Yep. And, I was going to say if anybody wants a list of this, I think we could send it because I know some people are driving around or whatever, maybe mowing their lawn, listening to a podcast, whatever it may be. But I think this would be a great list to have available. Folks just contact us, go to the website and give us a call or do the email and say, hey, I want that list from the show. But it's just so many good points that we could delve into every one of these areas and just really dig into it. But I hope this show is really important. I hope it's meaningful because I think it's a show we don't normally do. It's just a little bit different than what we normally cover. So I really hope that this becomes a valuable piece of information and share it with your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, check out the website, MasterPlanRetire.com. Schedule your complimentary consultation. The first conversation that we'll have with you is on your retirement hopes, dreams, fears, goals. Talk about legacy. We talk a lot more about the psychological stuff and emotional stuff up front. And then we get into the financial discussion and what do we need your money to do? How long will it take you? Again, we'll run a series of reports, kind of like getting your blood test from the doctor. Before you know what to treat, you have to see what the symptoms are and where the strengths and weaknesses are. MasterPlanRetire.com.
Yep. Appreciate you joining us today. It's been hopefully a great episode. just hope you visit their website, masterplanretire.com. There's so much good stuff there. But until we see each other again, remember, plan well and prosper.